Money, moolah, fat stacks, whatever you like to call it. It's a part of our life. We need money to live, but we're all a little bit nervous about talking about money. And when it comes to running a business, like if you're an electrician or a plumber or a carpenter or whatever it might be, a big question that a lot of people have is, how much should I charge? And maybe you've been running a trades business for several years now, and you're at the point where you're wondering, should I raise my prices at the moment? That's a question that's going through a lot of tradies' minds right now. And the reason is that inflation has kind of gone through the roof. The cost of living is higher now than it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And you might be feeling like you're not making as much money as you really need to get by and to live and to make a good living. So how do you know when you should raise your prices? If you do decide to raise your prices, what percentage should you increase your prices by? How much is it reasonable to charge? How much can you charge for your services? So many questions related to money that go unanswered often because we're kind of scared to talk about money sometimes. So in this video, I'm going to try to just share with you my honest and open opinion about pricing as a tradesperson from my personal experience, because we've just raised our prices. I made a video about a year and a half ago about pricing, showing actually how much we charge at Artisan Electrics for our services. Now, I'm going to reveal to you today how much we're charging now with the price rise that we've just implemented. So make sure you stay to the end of the video so you can find out exactly what our new hourly rate is. I'm going to try in this video just to answer some common questions that people have about raising prices or how much they should charge. Hopefully this will be helpful to you guys, and if it is, don't forget to hit a thumbs up. It really helps the channel to grow. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, because we do produce lots of videos all about electrician life, what it's like to be a tradesperson, and hopefully some valuable content that can be of benefit to you guys. So there's two things that I want to go into in this video. One is, how do you decide how much you should charge? What is reasonable? In order to do this, I've done a little bit of an experiment. So I've done some research. Actually, it wasn't really me. I'm cheating here. One of our viewers very kindly sent me in a spreadsheet of research that he has done as part of his company, finding out what the competition are charging. And I think you might be surprised to find out how much other electricians in our area are charging for their services. So I'm going to share with you that spreadsheet that our viewer has kindly sent in. I'm blanking out the names of the companies and stuff so that we're not revealing any confidential information. But it will give you a really interesting insight into the variation in pricing in our industry. So we'll talk about the competition, but we'll talk about you and your business too, and how you should decide what you should charge for your services. And then we're going to talk about the point where you need to raise your prices and how do you decide when is the right time to do that. So first of all, let's talk about the competition, right? Because Joe Bloggs down the road might be charging £20 an hour for his services, but you might need to charge more than that. Why? Well, if you've got a growing business, you've got overheads, you've got maybe staff, there's a lot of factors to take on board when it comes to deciding your pricing. And what I always say, and what I said in my previous video, and I say this in my electrician's business course, which there's a link in the description for that, by the way, if you want to find out more. I'll talk to you a bit about that later. What I say is this: in order to decide your pricing, you need to first know the cost of running your business. Some guys, they think, okay, I need to earn £200 a day to survive or whatever, to pay all my bills, right? So they think, okay, so if I charge customers £200 a day, then that's great. But what they fail to think about and take into consideration, unfortunately, in that scenario, is that you're not just taking home all of that £200 a day that the customer is paying you, because you've got to factor in all the other costs of running your business. Things like your fuel, your insurance, your tax, your tools. The list is almost endless of overheads when it comes to running a business. You've got your cost of your software platforms that you use to run the business, accounting fees. Now, if you're just charging £200 a day, there's no way that you're going to be able to take anywhere near that home by the time you've paid all your overheads for your business. So how do you know what those overheads are? Well, a simple way is to go through your bank statement, say for the last 6 months, and write down every single expense, or do a whole year if you can. Write down every single expense that's gone out of your account. If it's a recurring expense or if it's a one-off expense, add it all up, work it out, average it out over the number of days that you work in a year. So say you work 5 days a week, 52 weeks in a year, 52 times 5, that gives you the number of days that you work, and that's kind of factoring in that you're going to need some holidays sometimes, but you still want to get paid for those dates. Calculate that, so you've got your figure of how much you need to earn to cover your overheads, how much your overheads are on a per day basis, and then you've got how much you need to take home to pay your bills and to look after your family and to do what you want to do in your life. That plus that, and then you need to add something else, and that is profit. You see, a business should not just survive and be able to pay its bills without making any profit. A real business has to make profit. What is profit? Well, it's a certain amount of money that's left over that goes back into the business, and you can choose later on to take that out if you want and earn a little bit more money, or you can reinvest that back into the business to help to grow the business. But either way, if you're only scraping by and, you know, say £5,000 is coming into your business and £5,000 is going out of your business every month, your business isn't making any profit and your business won't be able to survive. You need to build in a kind of a buffer as well, so that if you have a few difficult months, you've got that buffer, those savings to rely on, and all of that can come out of your profit. So putting profit first is a really important factor to think about when it comes to pricing, and there are these 3 main categories to think about: covering your costs, paying yourself, and making sure the business makes a profit. Now, there's a really good book that I have benefited massively from. It's this one. It's called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. I'll leave a link in the description where you can get this book. And it just really helped me to change my thinking when it comes to the business. And it basically encourages you to, every time you get paid from a customer, put a percentage of that into a separate account called profit. And that is like money that you can't touch. That is the business's profit. And it encourages you to essentially set up lots of little accounts to divide into the various things that your business money needs to go into, such as your wages, your expenses, savings for the future, and profit. So it's a really interesting way of thinking, and I've implemented that now in my business, that every time a customer pays us, a certain percentage of the money gets transferred straight away into accounts for profit, savings, future, etc. So that we never get caught short, because if you find that you don't put aside the money for the VAT, for example, or your corporation tax or whatever it might be, when it's time to pay your VAT bill, if you've not got that money aside, you're going to come unstuck. And a lot of people forget to factor these things in when it comes to deciding how much to charge. That's what you need to know in order to decide your prices. But knowing what the competition is charging can be really interesting. So let me show you this spreadsheet now of how much some of the competitors in our area here around London, Cambridge area are charging, because I was surprised by this. So I'm going to share my screen with you now and I'll show you. So you can see like the origin of where he found out about the companies, the company names, which we're obviously not going to share with you, but we've got their locations here. So they're around the sort of Essex, Surrey, London, Kent kind of areas. But this is really the interesting part for me, is the call out charge for the first hour, the subsequent hourly rate after that, how much they charge for a half a day, how much they charge for a full day, and then we've even got the EICR pricing in here, which is quite interesting. And then, like, do they charge extra for a call out in Southwest London and stuff like that. So I'm going to just share all of this with you now, and we'll go through it from the top. So the first hour call out charges £90, £95, £80, £150, £80, £85, £100, £75, £62, £50, £80, £90, £95. Interesting, huh? Is that more or less than you would have expected? Let me know in the comments. That's the first hour, so it's a kind of a call out charge which is good to build into your business, because realistically, even if you spend an hour there, it's going to take you maybe half an hour to get there and half an hour to get to your next job. So you're going to lose money if you only charged for 1 hour labour. So what we've started doing now in our new pricing strategy is we charge basically for an hour and a half of labour for the first hour as a kind of call out charge, just to cover the extra travelling if it is only just a small job of 1 hour or less. Now the subsequent hourly rate, then you can see some companies charge a lot less for their subsequent hourly rate, and some charge the same as what they charge for their call out charge. So there's a company here that's charging $37.50 an hour, which is quite cheap in my opinion. Another company that's charging £95 an hour, and they were charging £95 for their first hour as a call out. So they're kind of charging the same. You can see in red here, there's no VAT, so they're non-VAT registered companies, and the black ones are VAT registered. So 95 would be plus VAT, so you're talking about £110, £115 an hour, including VAT. Let's go through these hourly rates, because this is kind of key here. So we've got 37.50, 95, 50, 50, 80, 65, 30, 85, 80, 60, 90. So there's quite a lot of companies charging around the £60, £70 an hour mark, but even around the £95, £90 an hour mark plus VAT. It's quite common, and you can see those companies are in like Paddington, so that's kind of in London. There's one in Wiltshire, there's one in London here that's charging £85 an hour. Quite fascinating to know how much other companies are charging, huh? And maybe it's more than you expected, which might make you think, actually I could raise my prices. Maybe you're seeing this now and thinking, I'm way undercharging for my services. Do you think that we at Artisan are charging more or less than these other electricians? Let me know in the comments and we'll reveal our exact pricing to you later. So then it comes to the pricing of half a day or a full day. Now some companies choose to price less for a chunk of work, so they do like a day rate, for example, which is not made up of 8 hours worth of an hourly rate, but they kind of condense it down to a cheaper rate if somebody gives them a full day's work. Same for a half day. Other companies just charge the same hourly rate if it's an 8-hour day or a 4-hour day or a 1-hour or 2-hour job. So something to think about. So these companies are doing a kind of a slightly cheaper day rate, so £95 an hour, but if it's a day it's £620, so it's a little bit cheaper. So you can see it varies here, but the day rate is £340, £620, £350, £280, £750, £570, £250. I mean, interesting, that £750 one is pretty much bang on. 8 hours at £95, whereas the £280, I mean, whoever's paying themselves £280, like charging £280 a day, I'm really surprised that they can actually survive, and that is in London as well. Now with EICR pricing as well, they price them in different ways. I'm not going to go too far into depth on the EICRs, but you can see this company, they're charging a full day for any size EICR, even if it's a 1-bed, a 2-bed or a 3-bed. They're just charging their same normal day rate, which is exactly what we do. Other companies are going really cheap on the EICRs. I'm guessing because the competition is crazy and they want to try and win the work, and they maybe hope that they get the remedial work out of that and it makes it worthwhile in the long run. But these EICR prices are dirt cheap in my opinion, and I would certainly not be pricing up EICRs for that, because you're just going to be losing out at the end of the day. So the averages now we can look at and just see what is the kind of average. So the average for a VAT registered company is £93.68 for the call out, and then £79.42 per hour for the hourly rate. Half a day £281.75, and a full day £579.72. The non-VAT registered is obviously slightly less. And what you can do in here, so you can input your prices into this. So I'll put my prices in there in a minute, and then we can see whether we're cheaper or more expensive than the average, which I think is really cool. And then based on that, we can look at actually, might you consider revising your prices or not? Great little spreadsheet, and really great thanks to my viewer for sending this in. Super happy with this. So that's looking at the competition. We've considered our own costs of running the business and calculating that so we know exactly how much we need to earn. And then you've got to kind of line those two up. And between those things, you've got to decide how much you should charge. You've got to charge enough to be able to be profitable in the long term. You see, you might get customers who are trying to hammer you on price all the time, and it's really frustrating when this happens. But what you need to remember is that if you want to offer great customer service to your customers, you need to be there in the long haul. You need to be able to stick around. And in order to do that, you need to be profitable. If you're not profitable, you will go bust eventually, and then you won't be there to support your customers, no matter how cheap you are. The key really is to know your worth, to charge a reasonable amount for your services based on the value that you give, but also based on how much it costs to run a successful electrical business. And that's exactly what we do. And I can tell you that we've not had any problems with not having enough work because of our pricing. We're probably on the high end of the scale, I would say, with our pricing, but it's not stopped us from getting work. In fact, the effect that we've had, the higher the prices, what seems to happen is we attract the better kind of customers, because the kind of customers who are trying to hammer you down on price all the time, they're the kind of customers who are usually a bit of a nightmare to work for. They're very picky, they're always trying to get more for less, and they tend to take a lot more time and effort to deal with in general, which just makes your life a lot more difficult. Whereas targeting the customers who are willing to pay a decent price for an excellent job and be thankful and happy for that job, those are the kind of customers that you want, really. And you market yourself to the right kind of customer base when you charge a higher end price and offer a higher end service as a result. So now, what if you're at the point where you've been running your business for a few years and you feel like you really need to raise your prices because of inflation, or maybe you just feel like you've grown a lot, your service has improved a lot, and you feel like you're adding more value now to your customers, so you feel like you should be able to charge more. There's always that fear that if I raise my prices, maybe I'll get less work, and then maybe I won't have enough work. So I want to share with you this little document here that somebody sent me. I work with a business coach, and he sent this to me when I was deciding recently whether to raise our prices or not. And it's very clever because it shows you how much you would need to lose in terms of work in order to earn the same amount of money when you've raised your prices. Does that make sense? What you do is you calculate what is your current profit margin. So if I say, okay, my profit margin is 30%, that means after I've paid all the costs for the jobs and I've paid all my overheads and everything, I've got 30% left for the business. That is my profit margin, so 30%. If I go down and I scroll down on here, you can see if you increase your price by this percentage, this is how much you would sales would have to decline in order to affect your profit negatively. So, for example, my profit margin, say, is 30%, right? I raise my prices by 10%. I would have to lose 25% of my work before the profit starts to be reduced. Now, I found that totally mind-blowing when somebody showed me that, because realistically, if I put my prices up by 10%, I'm not going to have 25% less customers going ahead. No way. And in fact, when we've raised our prices recently, we found it weirdly that more quotes are getting accepted, not less. Why that is exactly, I don't know, but it's very, very interesting to do the experiment, raise your prices, and see what happens. The other thing you've got to think about is inflation. You might think you're raising your prices, but actually what you're doing if you don't raise your prices is you're becoming cheaper every single year. And the reason is because every single year the cost of living goes up. £100 this year It's not worth £100 next year because of inflation. And inflation at the moment is going crazy, like 10, 12%. So actually you need to raise your prices by 10 or 12% just to keep up with inflation. Otherwise you're becoming cheaper each year. You're going to become less and less profitable by not raising your prices. If a loaf of bread costs £1 last year, now it's costing £1.12p, you know, it's 12p extra out of your pocket just to eat a loaf of bread with your family. And that kind of pattern is applied pretty much across the board with everything. You might find that your rent has gone up recently. You might find that your gas and electric bills have gone up. Most people have found that. Loads of things, the prices are going up. So if you don't raise your prices accordingly, you are going to lose out, and you might find that over the long term, you'll struggle to survive. So it's really worth looking at your pricing. Don't be scared, don't chicken out, just do it. Do the maths, figure it all out, and see if you're charging enough. And you might be surprised that you're not charging nearly enough for the services that you're offering. So the big reveal now, do you want to know how much we are charging? I'll share a link in the description to the previous video I made about pricing. It's had over 100,000 views and people seem to appreciate me being open about the pricing. So in that video I shared a segment from my Electrician's business course, and if you've not heard about it already, basically I run a course that is designed to help electricians to start and run an efficient and profitable electrical business. And it goes right from the beginning of an idea about a business all the way through to setting it up, every single step of the way. It's basically me sharing with you every step that I took to start Artisan Electrics and to get it to where it is today. So if you're interested in that course, there's a link in the description where you can get 50% off the course and you can watch the first 3 lessons absolutely free. So in my previous video that I was talking about pricing, I mentioned that we charged £80 an hour plus VAT, and we charged that for a 1-hour job or an 8-hour job or a 16-hour job, whatever. We didn't reduce our prices if it was a day rate or anything like that. And that pricing is what I have been charging since I was a one-man band. I think the last time I put my prices up, I went from £70 an hour to £80 an hour. That was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I've not raised the prices even as we've grown as a business. So we've just raised our prices from £80 an hour plus VAT to £93.75, which is an increase of about 17%. That means it's an increase above inflation, but our business overheads have grown. You know, we're running a business which has a lot of people in the background now, and in order to run our business profitably and on a long-term basis, we need to be able to charge those kind of figures. And as we've seen from the last few weeks since we've raised our prices, customers are happy to pay those prices for a great service that we offer. They're absolutely fine about it because it's about the value that you offer to your customers at the end of the day. Now, I know that it varies from area to area. Some people might say, well, I'm up in the north, property prices are a lot cheaper, the cost of living is cheaper, rent is cheaper and stuff like that. I can never charge what you guys are charging. Totally fine, I get it. It varies from area to area. Certainly London and Cambridge are going to be higher priced because the cost of living is higher and property prices are higher. But what you need to figure out for yourself is how much you should charge based on your area, your circumstances, how much you need to take home to support your family. And there's nothing wrong with revisiting that on a regular basis and just upping your prices if you need to in order to make sure that you are earning a decent living for yourself and your family. In fact, you should do that in order to run a successful and profitable business. So I hope this video has been of interest to you, helpful to you in some way. If it has, smash the thumbs up button. It really helps the channel to grow, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And if you would like to learn more, my Electrician's Business course is 14 hours of video content like this, where I share with you all my business tips and insights about starting and growing a successful business. So head to that link in the description where you can get 50% off the Electrician's Business course using a special code that's in the description. But either way, guys, thanks for watching and have a great day.